Welcome, Giants fans, to the Pocket Week 4 reaction to the Giants and Chiefs game. The Giants dropped to 0-3, losing 22-9 to the Kansas City Chiefs, who pick up their first win of the season. They played ugly, but they still managed to win by 2 scores in this game against the Giants. And why? Because it was ugly from us, too. And many of us are now asking for Jaxson Dart. Giants fans, drop a comment and let me know, should the Giants start Jaxson Dart in Week 4 versus the Chargers? And we'll get into that later. Use the timestamps to skip to that portion of the video. But first, we're going to do a quick recap talking about player stats, team stats, the play-by-play, and things of that nature. So let's get right into it. Alrighty, so you can see here right above my head, we have the win probability chart just to give you like an idea of if the Giants ever really had a chance to win this game. And I'm not even showing you the lower half of this chart because that would mean this is the Giants are trending to win. And there was only one point in this game where it was anywhere close to a 50-50 split. Obviously, the Chiefs were favored, so they started off with the advantage. But throughout the entire rest of the game, they pretty much maintained that. Outside of when it was 6-6, and then obviously we had little to no chance by the end of the game. So let's go into the drive-by-drive and sort of discuss that and how that went down. So the Giants drove to the 32-yard line and failed to get a 4th and 3 at the Kansas City 32-yard line. Like I said, you'd think this was a bold call by Brian Daboll, but no, actually, Graham Gano got injured in warm-up. So we had no kicker again. The Chiefs responded with a 12-play drive of their own, and that got them close enough to get a 54-yard field goal, with the added field position as well. And now it's 3-0 Chiefs. The Giants' next drive stalled out by conservative play calling and conservative decision-making by Russ. Tracy also had a nice catch and run, and he was looking good on this drive, but he dislocated his shoulder, taking a low hit, trying to truck someone on this play, and he's probably going to be out for at least a month, if not longer, especially if he tore his labrum and needs surgery or something like that. I don't think you want a running back playing out there with a brace, and the Giants punt on this drive. The Chiefs go ahead and they get another field goal out of their next drive, and that was a 9-play drive. So it's 6-0 Chiefs now. And then Russ had one of the worst plays of the season, throwing deep to Wandale on third down into triple coverage, and it's intercepted. It wasn't even like a great throw or anything. No, obviously it wasn't a great read, throwing into triple coverage. And you could even try to call this an arm punt, but the guy was able to return it with a pretty open field and get like maybe 15 more yards. So, no, I don't think it was an arm punt. By any means. He doesn't have the arm strength for that kind of thing. And fortunately for us, the Chiefs missed their field goal on the next drive. And then the Giants finally do something. We get to running the ball with Skattebo, passing the ball to Skattebo. Of course, Tracy's gone by this point. So we used him pretty much the whole drive to get down to about the 30-yard line. Some penalties got us within striking distance, and then Scat hammered it in. And he looked great on this drive. He really did. He looks very fast. We'll get more into it as we go further throughout the video. But the Giants try to kick the extra point with Jamie Gilliam, and it takes too long, and it's blocked. So 6-6 tie game, and then we end up forcing a punt, a 3-and-out. Good showing by the defense here. This game is still close. This is when I showed you the win probability. It was at this moment that it actually looked like the Giants did have some momentum. And this is really crucial here because the Giants, once again, get into striking distance to possibly take the lead nearing the end of half. With only about a minute left, they started this drive. And he throws the ball deep to the corner of the end zone to Neighbors, and he's so late on this throw. He's so late on this throw, and yeah, maybe Malik could have got up and tried to break it up, but the DB is ultimately able to intercept it, and that is a crushing blow right there. We could have been up 13-6, 14-6 if we went for 2, which we probably should have in this game the whole time, or even just kick a field goal, go up 9-6, chew up the rest of the clock, and you go into halftime with a lead against the Chiefs, but no. You give the ball right back to Patrick Mahomes, and then he's the one who enters halftime with a lead of 9-6, and they get the ball at half. So this right here, like I said, that win probability, that was the only time in the game where we really had a chance to kind of actually put the game in our favor, and we failed to capitalize, and that was really a poor decision by Russ. He's supposed to be not just accurate on his deep balls, but decisive and getting them off at the right time, and this was absolutely not it. So like I said, the Chiefs turn it into a field goal. We get halftime. They get the ball to start the half, and they get an 11-play, 74-yard touchdown drive. And that's just how it goes, right? You go from potentially being a 9-6 game, 13-6 game, and now this, even if they scored on this drive, it would have only been 13-13, 13-9, something like that. No, it's really, this is where we essentially lost the game in my eyes because we needed that advantage. On that drive of the Chiefs, we only had one recorded stat between tackles for loss, sacks, and pass breakups on that drive, and we had one tackle for loss for -1 yard. So not a great look by the defense coming out of half. And Shane Bowen, the Giants and Chiefs then trade punts, and then in the fourth quarter, the Giants do go on a 12-play drive led by Skattebo and some of the other weapons. Get some touches here. Malik Neighbors, that guy finally caught a pass in this game. And it was nice to get him involved, don't you think? I mean, third quarter, fourth quarter, finally get your all-pro wide receiver involved. That was really good on our end. Good decision making. The Giants can't punch it in though, and then Gano comes into the game and kicks a field goal. So what was up with him? Did he pull something and then he had to get loose and get back and ready? I don't know, but this drive just really bothered me because, like I said, it was like, oh, we finally get the ball to Malik Neighbors. I'm happy we're doing it, but it's too little, too late. I get Russ was trying to target him in the end zone the other time, but you got to do it at the right times, and it can't just be fades, okay? That's not going to work in any of these other games this year for the most part. Teams are going to be ready for that. The Chiefs go on another 9-play, 77-yard touchdown drive, and the game is over. It's 22-9 Chiefs. They only had 2 incompletions and 1 play that went for no gain on that drive. So, out of the two of the 3 drives in this to start the second half, Shane Bowen got owned by Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Not a big surprise there, but it's still something that we got to be mindful of. The Giants crawl their way back to the red zone, and yeah, it was still technically possible for us to win, but this is when it really just got so ugly. Russ in the red zone on the first play, throws it out the back of the end zone, facing some pressure, and gets an intentional grounding penalty. And it really should have been one because he threw it to absolutely no one. It was between 2 guys, 5 yards away from each of them, and it was probably 5 yards out of bounds over everyone's heads. It was ridiculous, and you're like, okay, this isn't ideal. So what do? Second down, we get absolutely nothing there. And then on third down and fourth down, Russ once again throws over the heads, basically throwing it away on third and fourth down from the Kansas City 10-yard line. But still, it was I would rather you throw an interception. Literally, throw it at a defender. So maybe there's a chance he drops it or pops it up and one of our guys catches it. Because if you just throw it out the back of the end zone, there's no chance of anything happening. Literally nothing. Try scrambling and getting tackled for no gain. Okay, you tried. You tried to do something. But no, the Chiefs close out this game 22-9, and that was the drive-by-drive. All right, now we're going to get into the player stats for the Giants in this game. And to start things off, Russell Wilson, one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. He is on the Giants, and he is much older now, but 18 of 32. How many of those were checkdowns? I mean, really, let's just check. We had 4 catches by Skattebo, and we had 2 catches by Tracy. And if you include the tight ends, that's 3 more. None of them had a catch for more than 10 yards. So that's 11 catches out of the 18. So only 7 targets that were not essentially dump-offs. That is really bad. 43.8% rating, 160 yards, and the 2 interceptions were really bad. Only 2 sacks. So I don't know the exact number for how much pressure he was under, but it was really, really not good. Dart did get in this game. Once again, he got used in these run packages, and those read option plays, they were actually working well. They were opening things up for Skattebo. We haven't really seen Dart pull it and actually do something. He did in the Cowboys game, but he slipped. And it was there. It was there for him to pull it, or, Skattebo was getting the runs, and, with that extra defender being accounted for by Dart, it was really helping out the offensive line. So that actually looked good, and I could really see that as being something that could improve our red zone offense, and we will get more into that later. I feel like the line in this game really wasn't even that bad. Andrew Thomas did get in there, but only played 25 snaps and then got out for the rest of the game. I don't know if he was feeling sore or if that was just the plan all along or what we were doing, but Obviously, it's a huge help having him in there. And, maybe for the first half of the game, not having this turn into a blowout, for the second half. And Bo, obviously, he's not as good, but, the offensive line, to me, wasn't a huge issue in this game. Outside of Chris Jones, the Chiefs don't have too much to expose that outside of what they do schematically. Skattebo was a Swiss Army knife for this offense that we used in every way possible. 10 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown when they know it's coming, too. Very, very impressive on the ground. And then through the air, 6 for 61. He looked very fluent out of the backfield. He kept his eyes on the ball and turned upfield very quickly. He did not have any drops. And he moved the chains for us a ton of times. I really wondered the exact stat for how many first downs he had, because he was really our whole offense against this Chiefs team. And like I said, people called him slow in the draft process, but he looked quick and he looked decisive as a runner and receiver. The Giants have a star running back on their hands here. It would have been great if we had Tracy to pair with him and relieve him a little bit and, get the most out of Tracy, but he's going to miss potentially months with that injury, like I said. So even though he did look also good in this game, it's a real shame that Tracy dislocated his shoulder. The wide receivers in this game, it could have been just the play calling and the decision making by Russ, but they were weak in this game. Obviously, we're not going to blame Malik Neighbors for what happened. It really seemed like they were bracketing him, but we really didn't do anything off of that. It didn't seem like it opened up anyone else. We were just checking it down. If they're bracketing Malik with 2 defensive backs, then that should mean that, either a tight end working his way downfield or Wandale or Slayton should have been much more involved. 4 for 30 by Slayton, and the 1 catch for 26 yards by Wandale was nice. And he also had a play that, it turned into a fumble, but it drew a penalty. Either way, it was just really uninspiring by the wide receiver core, and I kind of blame the wide receivers, Brian Dable and Kafka and Wilson, for that. But it's like, isn't this what a veteran quarterback is for? Isn't this what a coach like Brian Dable is for? So I'm not really looking quite as much at the wide receivers because we already know what they're capable of, and this is what we're still trying to do. Theo, Manhertz, and Bellinger are tight ends. They all had 1 catch for 6, 7, and 10 yards. Theo Johnson's was very impressive. The way he stayed on his feet and kept his legs moving, and the Giants got the pile moving. Skattebo says, the way he's physical really seems to inspire not just the offense, but the defense. But in this case, I really think, right after one of those Skattebo runs or receptions, this happened. And, I think, getting the most out of Theo Johnson is going to be huge for us. If he could just learn to catch the ball and be reliable like that, he's going to be a fine player for us. And Bellinger and Manhertz, they did their job. I like our tight ends. Our tight ends are fine. They're definitely not the biggest issue. Not the huge difference makers that some other teams have, but we have something working there. Defensively, Burns, once again, looks like our best player on defense. He had a sack, a TFL, 2 passes defended. I guess he swatted balls at the line of scrimmage. I didn't even realize that. And then 2 quarterback hits. Dex and Kayvon also had 2 QB hits as well. Abdul Carter had a QB hit. But there was some meat left on the bone for him in this game. There really was. We had 7 QB hits and 2 sacks in this game. One of those specifically was a play before the end of half where the Chiefs got their field goal where Carter had him dead to rights for the sack, but Mahomes just did one of those loops, got away, chucked it downfield, and got the PI call. So that's just a bad execution play by the Giants overall, but you want to see your number 3 overall pick finish. That's what he's supposed to be good at, is he's supposed to finish. And I get it's Mahomes, and he is one of the most elusive quarterbacks in the pocket, but you're supposed to be one of the best. I get you're a rookie. I have faith that he'll figure it out by the end of the season. There's obviously other issues with his defense, but I just wanted to point that out. The secondary kind of left out to dry a little bit with how much Mahomes was able to get away from those, QB hits, getting the ball off and, escaping those sacks, only getting sacked twice. But these wide receivers are not that great, okay? And I overall think the secondary was okay in this game, but Drew Phillips had a bad game. He got benched. Yikes, what's going on with him? Nubin, he still needs to work on his pursuit for his tackling. I still got hope for those 2 DBs that we got in last year's draft, but things are just looking a little odd. Why wouldn't there be improvement with the additions we've made? Year 2 in the scheme, year 2 of just being an NFL player. It's pretty strange. So that's my thought on the player stats. Now for the team stats. As you can see, these really go to show you why we lost this game. Because when you see something like total yards, okay, that's pretty similar amount of first downs and penalties. All right. So what was it that really lost us this game? Third downs, you can see the Giants were 1 for 10 compared to the Chiefs 8 for 15, which is pretty good for them, but 1 for 10 for any team is just god awful. It really is. It's those third and sevens that are just, the Giants are just allergic to converting those, and it's going to go into something I elaborate more on later, but it's just awful, really. I mean, it's not just the red zone, but it's that third down. And speaking of red zone, the Giants were 1 for 3, and the Chiefs were 2 of 3 in the red zone, and we were lucky to have Skattebo to convert that red zone touch for us, because as I would like to point out, the Giants were also 1 for 5 in the Cowboys game in the red zone. So despite all those touchdowns we scored, if it wasn't for those moon balls and the Cowboys secondary blowing their coverages and assignments, we would not have scored that many points, because we still couldn't punch it in the red zone versus this Cowboys team. So, and guess what? Guess who converted that touchdown in the red zone in the Cowboys game? It was Skattebo. We cannot pass the ball in the red zone. We are terrible at it. It's just the truth. Okay, so the red zone, the third downs, time of possession, they won. They had about a 4-minute advantage, about 32 to 28 minutes. But they would have possibly not had that time of possession advantage if it wasn't for the turnovers. 2 turnovers for the Giants. And those were the 2 interceptions by Russell Wilson. The second one in a super crucial situation at the end of half. That's a 6-point flip, or even a potential 14-point flip if they scored, or if we scored. And obviously it's a huge moment. And then on defense, we didn't have any turnovers. We had a chance to have 2 turnovers in this game. Adebo, he dropped a pick. There's tough plays to make, but your corner that we signed and we're paying you to be our number 1, would like to see him start catching those interceptions, because they're there to be had. And then Bobby Okereke losing that fumble. We'll talk more about it, but man, I respect trying to scoop and score, but you gotta just make the play happen, right? I respect the scoop and score, I really do, but you gotta be aware of who's around you, and it's just these types of things that we never do right. Let's dive a little deeper, or rather zoom out and figure out, why does this happen to the Giants? The turnover battle, the third downs, and the red zone. Well, for starters, like I was just talking about with the defense and the turnovers, the Giants defense, to me, seems to do a pretty good job of actually being in position. We do get pressure on the quarterback. We are there in coverage, but we can't finish plays in any kind of way. We really can't. The corners, they don't get their heads around to defend the pass. They miss swatting it, or they're not ready to pick it off. The pass rush, getting pressure on Mahomes, but allowing him to escape. Those sacks are potential fumbles that we need. And that's something we need this defensive line to start doing. And that's on the players, and that's on Shane Bowen. And then just general awareness, kind of going into the Bobby Okereke thing. You should just know that Mahomes is right there. You were running past him and by him as you were going to get the fumble. You got to step over with the ball between your legs, scoop it up, and get it close to your chest. And you, as a NFL player, should be able to read the situation. How close is Mahomes to me? Can I afford to scoop and score this? Or do I need to dive on this ball? It's just general awareness and being able to execute as our players and doing the little things right. All right? And to be honest, that you could argue it's on the players, but I think that has more to do with coaching, okay? Then third down. Russ has never really been a middle-of-the-field thrower, but it's also just anything that seems to be 10 to 20 yards downfield is really not there for them, because we think about him as this deep passer, and it'd make you wonder why he can't hit those intermediate throws, and it's because you got to rifle him in there. He's great at that deep ball because he can put touch on it, and it's justified to put touch on a deep ball. I mean, even that Wandale seam route, it had a little bit of air under it. It was closer to a line drive, but there's quarterbacks in this league that could rifle that on a rope to that wide receiver. That's how you need to hit those middle of the field throws and those intermediate throws, towards the boundary. You've got to rifle them in there. And he does not have a strong arm. And this is what we've known Russ for his whole career. And he's definitely regressing, and teams know what he wants to do, especially after last week, and they're all over it. It doesn't help that he's under some pressure, right? And he's rushed to make these decisions. But it just seems he has no recourse if it's not there. If the deep ball isn't there and it's third and long, you could check it down and you could get the 4th and 2 or 4th and 3 and decide to go for it and not get it because that's just what happens to us. But it's just not what Russell Wilson does well. It's not his strength. Okay, he's good at the deep ball, but it doesn't really seem like that's what this offense is going to excel at. So the play calling as well, I would say, is not doing Russ any favors. What was even the game plan for this game? I don't really know, because it seemed like as soon as they were on those deep concepts that we were running, Russ just threw it down there anyway. Was there no intermediate in route or crossing route underneath those deep routes that should have been opened up, since they had 2 guys on Neighbors or 3 guys on Wandale downfield ready to defend him? I don't really understand what the plan was here. And this ties into the red zone. For the same reason Rush struggles to fire over the middle in the intermediate areas of the field is the same reason he struggles in the red zone. You cannot float the ball in the air when everyone is so close to each other. It can get tapped up, right? The longer it's in the air, the longer the defense has to react. And since they're in the red zone, everyone is closer together. He's just got a weaker arm than most. Neighbors is our only weapon in there. And like I said, notice how against the Cowboys, we were 1 for 5 in the red zone with only Scat. Russ cannot score from 10 yards out. That's what I think we've learned, and I think it's clear by this point, based off the Commanders game and based off of this game. All right, so ultimately, judging this game, I think the defense has had a respectable performance considering the anemic offense. The offense is just bad. There's just no floor to be had there. The coaches definitely need to do a better job. Bowen was all right in this game. But that second half, that third quarter, really, he really got chewed up. But Dable and Kafka got to figure out what they're going to do here. If Russ is the guy, then you need to prove it to us and come up with a different game plan that shows us that he can do more than just throw these moon balls and check it down to Skattebo and Theo. All right, so we got to figure out if that's what we're going to do, or if we're going to throw in someone else and change up the game plan. So what does this all mean? What does this all mean for Giants fans? To me, it means we're done with Russell Wilson. I think we know that Cowboys defense was awful, and we're not going to face that again. Look at this schedule. We've lost to the Commanders, the Cowboys, and the Chiefs. Tough matchups, but guess what? The defenses are not going to get any easier than that Cowboys defense, not even close. The Chargers are playing out of their minds right now. The Saints, yeah, their offense is pretty bad, but their defense isn't even that bad. I mean, they just did get destroyed by the Seahawks, but, it's just... You could say the same thing about the Giants, to be honest. I think we're definitely better, but we're a very similar team with the way we work. Eagles, obviously, the best defense in the league, maybe. The Broncos, they're up there, top 5. The Eagles, again, the 49ers did just lose Nick Bosa. They have a ton of players who are injured and coming back and all that kind of stuff. So, we'll kind of see how it develops. But, I don't feel great about playing San Francisco. The Bears, they just beat the Cowboys, who we couldn't beat on our best day. So I don't think we're going to beat the Bears. The Packers probably have the best defense in the NFL. The Lions are definitely, a team with a better defense than, I would even say the Commanders and definitely the Cowboys. And probably playing on a similar level to this underperforming Chiefs defense. And then we have the Patriots. Their defense is supposed to be part of their main core identity, so I think we would struggle against them. Then we got Commanders again. Dan Quinn owns us. The Vikings, Brian Flores, good luck against that. The Raiders, and then Cowboys to finish off the year. There's some opportunity with those last 2 games, but are you telling me we're going to wait until after Week 16 to face another defense that we can actually, kind of score some points against? And like I said, none of them are as bad as the Cowboys, and with the way the Giants look right now, 1 game we should win, that's the Saints game. 3 games we maybe win, that would be Saints, Patriots, and Raiders, I would say. And then 7 games that there is just a conceivable chance that we could win it. That would be the 49ers, the Bears, the Vikings, and the Cowboys, along with the 3 aforementioned Saints, Patriots, and Raiders. So there is still a potential 7 wins on the schedule. And no, I did not do that on purpose. But it's just like I said, there's only a conceivable chance that we beat a team like the 49ers, the Bears, the Vikings, and the Cowboys. We're probably only going to win 1 of those games, if I had to guess. We'll probably win 1 of the Patriots-Raiders games, and I think we'll beat the Saints. So we're looking at 5 wins right now. Okay, so maybe with Jameis or Dart in, And with AT rolling and being, comfortable in the offense at this point and comfortable playing, things could be different. But I have zero benefit of the doubt in this team right now, and deservedly so. To you, it probably sounds right now like I would like to start Jaxson Dart, and you might ask me, so what about the plan to sit Dart, right? You were talking about that, and, to protect him from this catastrophe. Isn't this why we have Jameis? Like Bobby Skinner said, though, we made Dart the QB2, so it looks kind of bad if we've been putting Dart in there and like testing him out, and we have him listed as the QB2, and then we suddenly play Jameis Winston. It's like, okay, well, is Jaxson Dart not ready? The media's going to start doing their thing, where they start screwing with the minds of John Mara, Joe Shane, and Brian Dable, and we really don't want that. So ultimately, what I'm going to say is, I think we should start Jameis. Even with the pending controversy from that, it's not a reason to potentially compromise Dart if he's not ready or if he's going to get beat up. This is why we got Jameis in the first place, because he is the inverse of Russell Wilson, and we can use him to open up this offense, even if he might turn it over. Because guess what? That's what's happening with Russell Wilson right now anyways. Because even though Jameis might make a poor decision and throw an interception, Russ is throwing interceptions because he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have the ability to threaten the entire field, and teams just know where he's going. So he's now also turnover prone on this team. We've seen Jameis do this on a lot of teams and look the same. I think we know what we're getting. Do I think we'll do that? I actually don't. I don't think we'll start Jameis, even though that's what I want to happen. Because I think that Brian Dable believes Dart is better than Jameis right now, and he could be right. I mean, he did list him as QB2. He has been throwing him out there. This is the moment that not just Giants fans, but NFL fans in general have been waiting for. I mean, there is no soft spot in this schedule to slide Dart in there and get a cheeky win. But we do get New Orleans right after this Chargers game. So if there was a time to do it, I would say it is before the team goes 1-11 or 2-14. It's now to get him in there learning the fastest way there is, which is live and meaningful reps. Like I said, I prefer to start Jameis. I do. And to kind of give Dart as much protection as we can, give him as much time to prepare as we can, a few more weeks to dial it in. But I think Dart believes himself that he is ready. And he seems like the type that isn't going to get too discouraged by mistakes or losses. And if he's going to be our QB of the future, at this rate, what gives anyone any confidence that the Giants are going to be better next year? That the schedule won't be just as hard? There's no reason to believe that next year is going to be easier. I mean, the one thing that is true is he'll definitely have more time preparing, but we just have seen with J.J. McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell that even that isn't a sure thing sometimes. So we don't know if Dable and Shane are going to be here anyway next year also. So imagine sitting him this whole time, having Brian Dable coach him up and then just fire him, and he hasn't even played yet. And then he has to learn from a whole new coach next year and he's got no live reps to depend on. Like, it just doesn't sound great to wait to play him until the very end of the year. I think he's got to get in there, especially with how things look right now. So I expect decisions to be made soon. The Giants fans want something that's at least exciting. If we're going to lose, I want the other team to break a sweat and make some mistakes if we lose. The other team always looks so comfortable, so prepared, and so ready when they play us, and I'm so sick of it. I really am. The Chargers look amazing right now, and whether it be Jameis or Dart, I'm ready for just something different. I want to hit them with something new. I don't want them to be preparing for Russell Wilson, us roll that out, and expect something different. They're going to kill us if we have Russell Wilson out there. I'm sorry, but it's just what's going to happen. And I've appreciated what Russ has tried to bring from an attitude standpoint. And, the effort he gave us in week 2 against the Cowboys was amazing. But I just don't think it's enough to save us. And, I hope we start Jameis or Dart next week. I really do, because we can always go back to Russ if Jameis is terrible. And it's worth a shot, I think, to throw Jameis out there. So that's my opinion. That's all I got for you guys in this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Giants content. It really helps me out, and you get to follow along with me as I try to stay as positive and realistic as I can for you guys. And tell me in the comments, once again, is it time to start Dart? I appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.